Welcome on in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by CIBC, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. We are live at the Heineken Pub 97 at the CIBC Fire Pitch. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Klopas. Lots to talk about. We'll look at the loss in Philadelphia, but we're going to get you ready for the playoffs because, guys, the Chicago Fire can actually clinch a playoff spot tomorrow if things fall the right way.
Some big games, obviously big opportunity last week, Fred, against Philly, an opportunity to close the gap a little bit for second place. But, some exciting games, Paul. You look at Wednesdays and then Saturday's games. There's so much to play for a lot of teams, as far as just, finalizing a spot in the playoffs and then obviously just locking down a certain position where you finish on the table.
Well, I think, for me, it would be a big moment for this organization because it hasn't been a great last few years, right? And so if you had sat down at the beginning of the season and said to the fans, we're going to make the playoffs, I think that would be the first measure of success for a team that hasn't been in the playoffs in a while. And so if they're able to get it done this week and lock things up, then you check off a major goal for this club and for this team. And then from there, then you move forward, right? Because your goals have to shift. Once you hit one goal, the next goal begins, and that one is to advance past the first round of the playoffs, to make noise in the playoffs, or maybe it's to get a 3 or a 4 seed as the home game, or the 2 seed as a bye. But I think it would be a major accomplishment, especially for this club and this team.
With 4 games left to play, let's take a look at the ways that the Chicago Fire can clinch a playoff spot. And scenario number 1, if they win at San Jose tomorrow night and a Montreal Impact tie or loss to New York City FC. Secondly, if they tie in San Jose and the Montreal Impact lose to NYCFC and the New England Revolution tie or lose against Orlando City SC. It's a thing like this, you win. You win, you don't have to worry about everything else. That's always a way to do it, just win.
Well, it's in your hands, no? I think you put yourself in a really good spot right now. And, we always talk about how difficult it is to go on the road and try to, to get points to win. But I think that I agree with Paul. I think that it's right there in front of them. I think the playoffs are, you can just see, the light in the end of the tunnel. And then I think that, I think it's just a matter of just finishing strong. It's not going to be easy, going to San Jose. I think it's a game that both teams need to get a result. You see where they are in the standings. You see how well they play at home. It's not going to be an easy game. But, I think it's important to find a way, to play well, to get a result. And then, like Paul said, just clinch that spot.
Well, as much as the Fire would like to clinch a playoff spot on Wednesday night, it's a bigger game for San Jose. I believe their playoff chances are somewhere around 25-26%. So they need to win to get in. And in a Western Conference where very little is decided, they have a chance to sneak in to the postseason, but they have to win their games at home especially. Anywhere you look around the league, there are a lot of teams fighting, not just for playoff spots, but for position in those postseason. And whether it's Wednesday night against the San Jose team that needs a win to help itself get in, or on Saturday against New York, where you're fighting to potentially get up into that 2 seed and have a bye in the playoffs, which would be huge. Every game right now kind of has these bigger implications.
And that's why it's exciting. You look at, for me, I think there's so much on the line, for a lot of these teams, for, even teams that are out of the playoffs. Teams that, they are building, and then, even for next year to try to get some momentum and finish the season in a positive way. But going back to Paul's point, I think with the Fire, I think it would be a huge step forward, because this is a plan that they've had, and they talked about year 2, being in the playoffs. That's not to say that once you're there, your goals finish, but I think it's a huge step that they've taken. This is part of their plan in year 2, and then they're right there. They almost have like, one hand of the trophy and the other one is coming to grab it to reach it, and I think it's great for what they've accomplished. I know they have a lot more to do, but it's a great step forward.
And there's another thing, too. There's 4 games remaining. There still is a chance that the Chicago Fire, which dropped down to 4th in the standings now after the loss and an Atlanta win, there's still a chance they can get up to the number 2 if things fall the right way.
Look, they're 4 points out of it, out of that number 2 spot. And, if they get a result in San Jose, it's a huge game against New York. It's a 6-point game. If you win that game, that's +3 for you and -3 for New York, which is the team you're chasing. So being 4 points behind them, depending on what New York does on Wednesday, You know, if they come out of these next 2 games with 6 points or even 4 points, it really closes that gap because you play the opponent you're trying to catch. Obviously, Atlanta is in there as well. No Almiron. We'll see how they do. We'll know a lot more about Atlanta in about 2 weeks' time when they have played 3 more games. But certainly, I think there's a chance at the 2 seed. But beyond the 2 seed, a 3 or a 4 is critical as well. Lock down a home spot.
I think that for me, I think that's the key. You know, I think, yes, it's great if they can finish second, but me as a player, and I'm thinking as a coach, I think the opportunity, you know, to finish, you know, 3rd or 4th and have that play-in game, but have it at home, because I think you want to continue to build, especially if you're playing well towards the end, to have the momentum. You're a very good team at home. You've seen that. So I think for me, finishing 3 or 4 and having a play-in game, but doing it at home and continue to play and continue to be sharp, I think is important for the players, for that continuity.
Yeah, sometimes the bye can actually slow down some of the team's momentums. We come back, we will talk about the Chicago Fire and the loss that happened in Philadelphia this past weekend. Don't forget, big games coming up this week. Wednesday night, the Chicago Fire go to San Jose. It is a 9:30 kick, 9 o'clock pregame on CSN+. Then on Saturday, the big one with NYCFC coming to town, a 7:30 start. Game presented by Valspar. Tickets available at chicago-fire.com. The first 5,000 fans in the stadium receive a jersey keychain. We'll take a look back at what happened in Philadelphia. We come back. Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC.
Heineken tastes perfect every single time, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster, almost as long as it took me to master this look.
She came to meet a man. She found an angel. What's his name now?
Still practicing. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster. There's more behind the star.
The heat will wear you out real quick. And we've been through some hot ones. It's very physical. You gotta take care of your body and stay hydrated because every moment matters. That's why I drink Advocare Rehydrate. I've got a job to do.
Why would you go out of your way and wander around a warehouse for paint when you can just swing by your local Ace? Ace has top-rated paint like Valspar, can match any color and mixes it with something that's hard to find. Award-winning service, because the way we see it, if anyone is going to go out of their way,
it should be us.
It's the Ace Extra Mile promise. If it ever takes more than one trip to complete your paint project, we'll bring you what you need, and delivery is free.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by CIBC. The Chicago Fire went to Philadelphia. We talked about it. Some teams that you think you go in, you can beat. It was a rough one against against DC United a while back. Now against Philadelphia. And Frank, you say it all the time. A lot of times it's the first goal, and that first goal probably changed things.
Well, we talked about it, and with Paul, and we talked about it with you, Fred, last week, and we talked about how this team at home is a different team, But the one thing I think for me tactically that they did better is that bringing Craval into the game, because at least he gave him a little bit more of a more discipline, another guy in front of the back four, and then freed up a little bit more Medunjanin and Bedoya, to have more of an attacking role, knowing that you're going to have one guy behind you to defend. In the end of the day, though, it still came down, for me, giving up the first goal, because once they did, they played a little bit different. They dropped off a little bit. They stayed more compact. They got numbers behind the ball. And then, having said that, the Fire had to be extremely patient. Their ability to move the ball and the timing of the runs, and then the service had to be spot on. And they came very close. There were some very good opportunities, some touches that were not there, but And then obviously you see the big chance by Akam in the first half to equalize, Paul. That didn't happen, and then you give up the second goal, and I think the third one was the killer.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, this league is a funny one, and I think that this weekend was as good of an indication of that as anything. I like to call it peak MLS. But you see what happens when you're a good team facing a team with quote-unquote nothing to lose, right? I mean, Philadelphia still had plenty to play for. They're playing for their jobs for next season. They're playing for starting roles. They're playing to impress Ernie Stewart and Jim Curtin, and you saw some guys really step up and show something. Fafa Picault, I thought, had one of his best games of the season. Warren Creavalle trying to prove that he can still play a role in this league. Chris Pontius hadn't scored all season and finally broke through. But it wasn't just the Fire that had moments like this, right? Toronto dropped the game to New England, the team that you would expect them to beat. NYCFC dropped points at home to Houston. Dallas lost 4-0 against Minnesota. Seattle lost to RSL. If you overlook anybody in this league, you are going to get beat. And I'm not saying that that the Fire overlooked them, but what I'm trying to communicate is that it's very difficult to go on the road and beat anyone, even this late in the season. And I think, you know, Philadelphia played really well, and they took their chances, and that allowed them to have a comfortable win.
You know, one guy that I know watching the game back here, you mentioned Jack Elliott, one of their defenders, and he made a play early on where DeLu was coming in. If he doesn't make a move like this, it's gonna be an easy pass from DeLu to accommodate, score the goal. But Elliott made a great play, and I remember you talked about it.
Yeah, I just felt for a young player in that position, it's all about anticipating and reading the play. And it's I don't know if you get a really clear idea and picture, but being there live and seeing that opportunity when DeLu breaks in, and it's all about delaying at that time, because if he steps across, DeLu's just waiting for him to take one step. So he's delaying until last second, and obviously that allows Marcus, because DeLu slows down a little bit, thinking that, okay, he's going to come across, I can slide the ball square to Akam or Nikolic coming through in the back post, and it's a goal. And I felt that he played that great for a young defender, a great play. But also on the other side, you saw, for me, Kopelhoff gets caught in a 1v1 situation with Bedoya going down. And it was perfect because he delays. He doesn't want to give the inside because Bedoya is a right-footed player and he sees him coming. And the way he moved his feet and the way he didn't want to get beat inside, he delayed. He had help come back, and then once he takes the touch outside, then he steps in because he's very athletic. So I think for me there was two great defensive plays, one by a young guy and one by an experienced player.
And I'll say also, Frank, I thought Bedoya had probably his best game in a while for Philadelphia. And credit to Jim Curtin for maybe he watched the show and listened to what you said last week, saying that, you bring Creavalle in and it's going to free them up a little bit more. And that's exactly what happened, because Crevalle's just going to sit in front of that back line, and it allowed Bedoya and Madoujanin to have more of an impact because they could float a little bit more and move around the field a little bit more.
And Paul, and I think for me that first goal changed things, because then I think some of the problems would have still been there for Philly. If it was still 0 even with Creavalle, because I still felt that the outside guys don't come back, and then even with Creavalle being there, he's at times isolated. Those channels on the right or left of him would have been a little bit more open. But then once the goal, they scored, they got behind the ball. They dropped in their own half, and then it was a little more compact, and then the Fire had to be extremely patient. They had a lot of possession of the ball, and then there were a couple times where you saw that through ball to Akam, his touch was a little bit heavy, and then the opportunity that came from the pressure from McCarty centrally. They win the ball, and then it comes to DeLu. He plays a great ball. I think you're right. Maybe the touch, the ball bounces on him, and I think when you have a guy like Blake, you're saying it's got to be a perfect shot to score.
The one thing we have, you're getting this close. You got 4 games up before the playoffs start. Nice to see other guys pitch in. You have Akam, you have Nikolic. Lucho scores his 6th goal of the season, a career high for him, and that was nice to see for a guy who comes in and just works his tail off.
Yeah, for sure. You want people contributing and scoring goals no matter who they are, and I think also we've talked about this before, but I think Soloniak is a confidence player. I think when he starts to score goals, he feels it a little bit more. So definitely a good sign, and especially when you start to have some guys that are out, like Schweinsteiger, like Juninho, you want other role players stepping up in bigger moments, and good for him to get the goal. He just needs to carry that forward and try to score some goals in bigger situations and games that are going to really start to matter here in the last final weeks of the season.
It would have been an interesting goal, but Georgi Mihailovic almost had a ball that went through the wall and almost made it into the net before it was
a weird design play. It looked like he was trying to maybe create a pass with a guy on the wall. I think it was a design play, and I actually like seeing more of that in MLS because those work more often than people think.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We come back, we'll take a look at Wednesday night's opponent as the Chicago Fire get ready to take on San Jose. It'll be Wednesday night. You can catch the game at 9:30 on CSN Plus. Pregame starting at 9 o'clock. And don't forget this coming weekend, a big match on Saturday. Get on out to Toyota Park. 7:30 kick against NYCFC, presented by Valspar. Chicago-Fire.com/tickets to pick up your tickets for the game. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
And it's down to a free throw. He's at the line. Oh, no. It's a miss, but, oh, man. We could have a bit of a delay, but we'll be back with overtime.
A liberal arts education is more than just a degree.
It's about learning and evolving in a place where tradition and innovation meet.
It's a balance of embracing history while challenging the expectations of our future.
It's where scholar meets athlete.
Artist meets researcher.
Leadership meets service.
And inspiration meets opportunity.
See beyond the degree where possibilities are endless. Find your balance at St. Xavier University.
Go inside the lives of Chicago's biggest sports stars, only on Inside Look, presented by Cadillac. Your questions answered.
And it got this big because basketball got this big.
Idols revisited.
They bring the atmosphere and the energy that you need throughout the grind of a season.
And the stories behind the headlines revealed.
I realized so many reasons why I'm back home.
Catch a new interview every month with Inside Look on CSN. Visit csnchicago.com for listings.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC. The Fire getting ready for a big week ahead of them as they go on the road to take on San Jose before coming home Saturday night against NYCFC. And let's take a look at San Jose. And Frank, is it a good thing? I know they have no choice, but it's a good thing after going on the road to Philadelphia to play this quickly to get back on the pitch against a team like San Jose.
No, I mean, listen, you always want the next game right away. You don't want to be waiting and thinking about this result. You know, the only thing we often talk about travel in this league and late in the season, you know, I mean, this is, you know, it's not a short trip. You're going east or Midwest to, you know, all the way to the West Coast. So that part is not going to be easy. You know, the players want to get in the field as quick as possible. And so I think you have to try to manage that part and see how guys are feeling. And, you know, we'll see if any rotation takes place, you know, because you don't want to think ahead to Saturday's game, but I think you played in Philly, you have a long travel day. You know, we don't know how guys are feeling, so I'm assuming there might be some rotation, or some guys were taking off ball a little bit early the last game, maybe thinking ahead for this one, and so, you know, we'll see, but it's a long travel day.
For sure, you have to think that when you saw guys coming off the field earlier in that game, they were thinking about the workload that's to come, but I agree with you. I think when you play, I mean, there's no favors done here by the MLS schedule makers, right? Going from Philly on a Saturday all the way across to San Jose on a Wednesday, back to Chicago for a game on a Saturday. It's just a lot of time on an airplane, which also means not a lot of time on a training field, not a lot of time for recovery. Just looking at Wednesday in San Jose, you play the game Wednesday, you're flying back Thursday. That means a recovery day is all day Thursday is gone, which means
that
when you come in for Friday, you've got to do regen still. Your legs are going to need that regen, so just not a lot of training time. That being said, you know, for me, it's a game on the road against a team that's been very, very good at home since Chris Leach took over as the head coach. 7-0-1 at home. Very tough to play against. They play quick. They like to play transition. Younger, skillful. Certainly, they've been a different type of team in an attacking sense at home both under Leach and also just when they're playing at home. So do you prioritize that NYCFC game at home and maybe put on some other players to give them a chance in San Jose and give yourself a chance to rest? Maybe. But if not, you better be ready to play against a very quality attacking side in San Jose, because when they play at home, they've been very good going forward.
Yeah, and I think some of the players that they have, I mean, they've been going in a 4-4-2 system. They have the two strikers at top, the Costa Rican guy, Urania, who works extremely hard. You know, he's got a lot of pace, very good in transition, and obviously Wondolowski, we know him, he's so smart. The timing of her runs, finding the space, coming in late, joining in, but then also I think the wide players, you're right, I think they more attacking at home with Hosen at times on one side, on the right, the young DP that they have, Vaco, sometimes Haika, so they do have more attacking weapons going forward. You know, out of the back, they've used Salinas now, who's a midfielder. They converted him as a left back. You know, he has pace, the ability, you know, because Vaco comes inside a little bit more narrow. You got Salinas with pace to get up and down the flank there. And also Sarkordi, not as technical, you know, I would say, but a good athlete. So there's some challenges, but I think the Fire have to, and I think we'll be able to control the middle of the field. That depending how they play against the 4-4-2 system, got to be good with the ball on the road. You know, we always talk about that, Paul.
Well, I was looking at some numbers Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com recently put up. Not only have they been a better attacking team at home, but they've been far better defensively. I think they've given up 2 goals in every game, at least 2 goals in every game under Leach on the road. But I think in their last 4 home games, they've given up something like, or last 5 home games, 3 goals total. So they've been much better defensively. You know, having been in Portland for the Portland Timbers Orlando game on Sunday, watching tactically how Portland took apart Orlando because they were playing 5 in the midfield against a 4-4-2, you have the numbers in the midfield automatically there. And when you can bring the fullbacks forward, it creates even more of an overload in the midfield. And what I thought was really smart about what Portland did, and what I think, you know, maybe the Fire should consider, is bringing the fullbacks forward, but they don't need to go bombing all the way up to the wings and opening you up in transition. If they just step a little bit even with Dax McCarty on that defensive midfield line, it creates a line of 3 there and creates basically a midfield of 7 against 4. And I think that creates some chances to move the ball side to side and stretch that 4-4-2 and open up those passing lanes for those Nikolic runs, for those late Delu runs. I'll be interested to see, but I agree with you. I think that 5v4 matchup in midfield, that's the key. Can they keep the ball in the middle of the park?
For sure, and I think with their wide players, with Hosen at times and Vaco, they're more attack-minded at home. I think you're right. In one sense, keeping the fullbacks a little bit more inside, I think it prevents the counterattacks, but I think there'll be opportunities, and they have to be a little bit careful, not both of them going, because now with the 2 strikers they do have, you always have to keep numbers up in the back. So if the right midfielder goes, maybe it's either Vincent or one of the midfielders dropping back to have always numbers up. But I think the opportunity to control the game, be good with the ball, but also at times picking the moments, whether the right fullback to overlap or the left side to go and create those overloads. But I think it still comes down. You can't fall behind early. You know, I think they're going to push the game. They need to get a result. They play the Fire at home and then Portland this coming Saturday. I think they need to get 4 points out of the 2 games. That's the way they look at it, but it's always tough to be on the road.
Well, real quickly, you're talking about Wondolowski. He always seems to be there. You might not hear his name much for 89 minutes, but the 90th minute he might score. And if he does, his next goal is 133rd goal, tying him with Jaime Moreno, a guy you remember watching, for 3rd on the all-time scoring list.
A great all-time goal scorer, Jaime Moreno, just such a good player. But Wando, I think, doesn't get credit for how good of a goal scorer he is. His movement over the years has been impeccable, and he's just a guy who's always in the right spot.
And for me, he's been consistent, Paul. Like every year, the guy is there, and that's a goal scorer.
Don't forget, after the game on Wednesday, there'll be a contest coming up Saturday. So you got Wednesday night at San Jose, but the big one coming up on Saturday as New York City FC comes to Toyota Park. Get your tickets now, 7:30 kick, presented by Valspar. Go to chicago-fire.com/tickets. We come back, we'll take a closer look at the Chicago Fire as they gear up for their playoff run. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
The blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. Power on and on.
If you have recently suffered an injury or had surgery, let the experts at NovaCare Rehabilitation get you back to an active lifestyle. Our comprehensive programs deliver the highest level of physical therapy, hand therapy, sports medicine, and work health rehabilitation. Our highly skilled therapists develop individualized treatment plans to exceed your expectations. So, don't live in pain. To request an appointment today, visit NovaCare.com. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Don't let pain knock you out of the ring. Our hand, wrist, and elbow experts are pioneers worldwide. You need us in your corner. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. After our minimally invasive spine surgery, 80% of golfers maintained or improved their handicap. Be treated by the pros to play more like a pro. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. What's more powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
Welcome back in. It's time for Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare. The Chicago Fire with a big week ahead of them as they can grab some points leading up to the playoff push. They are currently 4th in the Eastern Conference at San Jose, and then back home coming up on Saturday against NYCFC. And guys, one of the things, we don't know what's going to happen in the midfield. We're still not sure about Schweinsteiger, not sure about Juninho, but the back line has been solidified after some of those injuries. Myra came back. You have Vincent and Polster, Kappelhoff. We saw Campbell come in. That's a key as we come down the stretch here with these final 4 games.
I think it's good to get those guys healthy, but it's also good, I think, to, I think an opportunity. You have the 2 big games right now, but also, Paul, that, the break, the international break. So I think you really have to be smart because, you don't want to take some kind of risk right now, and then, you have the guys out for the playoffs. So I think this is an opportunity, as tough as it is, missing some of these key guys. I think you have a window of opportunity where you can be smart, and still have a couple games going into the playoffs where they can get their match fitness and sharpness.
I would agree. It's very difficult right now to be playing without Bastian Schweinsteiger in midfield. You can see the impact that he has when he's on the field and when he's not. However, as tough as it is to look at that New York game, I just think if you feel even questionable about him, you have a 2-week break after that game, and playoffs are on the other side of it.
Exactly, yes.
You've got to be cautious. But that being said, he's been out now for a while, and Juninho has been out for a while. Somebody's got to grab a hold of that starting job, whether it's Drew Connor or Georgi Mihailovic. Maybe it's Arturo Alvarez coming inside. They need to figure out who they want to be in there that can help keep the ball and also to provide some defensive balance when they don't have the ball. So some difficult decisions, I think, to make in that spot, especially because you do have Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday this week. So if you're going to rotate, you want to try to get somebody in there different maybe to ease off the minutes a little bit. But, I feel like there's been that kind of a rotation since Schweinsteiger went out, and I don't know that there's been the right answer yet, the right combination yet there.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because I think, when you look at Drew Connor, I think, you know what you're going to get from this kid every game. Even the last game, I felt like his effort, his work rate, his ability without the ball to close down, and then I think there are times with the ball, I think that he gets himself a little bit in trouble. He seems to dribble at times into space, and I think, with the ball, he's just got to be a little bit better, because when you're on the road, the one thing is that you have to be, you have to take care of the ball. You have to be better than you can. Those turnovers sometimes hurt and disrupt the rhythm in the game. So it'll be interesting to see, Paul. You're right. For this game, but also for the Saturday game in New York. Because if we look at the last game against NYCFC that they played, I felt that Alvarez, who played in a game out wide, he had a very good game. I think he created a lot of problems. every time he got the ball and he was able to have an opportunity to go at that back line, because he's so good, you know, at going by that initial first defender and either to create shots or to find the through pass. I felt there were moments also in the middle, because even with Ring, when he plays it, I think at times, you know, and listen, let's not forget that game. Herrera got that early red card, so there was space centrally where the Fire kind of dominated. And then at times, depending who plays, if Ring is there, you know, he's left alone at times. And I think there's going to be spaces in the middle where I think the Fire can take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I think this just hammers home the importance of depth. And you look at, you have 3 starting level central midfielders, and even then there are going to be moments in the season when it's not enough. But yeah, I mean, I think against both teams, you know, we talked about San Jose, why the middle of the park will be important in that you have a numbers up advantage. But when you're talking about NYCFC, they play just Davi Villa up top. They have weapons in the middle of the park. The wings do a lot of work. Jack Harrison, Rodney Wallace, of course, doing work out there. But Maxi Morales sitting underneath is a very dangerous player. You assume that the center backs are going to be occupied with Villa. A lot falls on those defensive midfielders to watch Maxi Morales close his space so he can't play the ball and be effective in the final third, but also to watch him for those late runs at the top of the box. So there's a lot of decision making to be made there, and you also don't want to change up too much in the lineup if you don't have to. We've seen Joao Myra play in that defensive midfield position. Would he be an option in bringing Jonathan Campbell? Well, now you'd be messing with your backline chemistry. You know, do you bring one of the other wide midfielders inside? Do you ask Drew Connor to, you know, go back into that spot and make sure that he's starting to learn? You can't give the ball away in these moments. Be a little more simple with it. You know, play the easy pass if you have to break pressure versus trying to make the, you know, the pretty pass that'll break through the lines. I just think that position is going to be vital in these next couple games, and it'll be interesting to see what the coaching staff comes up with and how they want to play it, because again, it's a quick turnaround from San Jose to NYCFC, and that's a spot where you could see some rotation.
That NYCFC coming up on Saturday, it's kind of like a dress rehearsal for the playoffs, because you know NYCFC is going. The Fire, good chance they're going to the postseason. There's always a chance these two teams could meet somewhere down the line in the postseason. I mean, this is going to be all kinds of fun coming up on Saturday. This is the kind of game that players live for, isn't it? You know, playing these kind of games late in the season.
I mean, Paul talked about it. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, there's not a bigger game. You know, you have, well, there's a bigger game, but I'm just saying you have an opportunity to play, you know, NYCFC in a crucial moment, and you see some of the players, you know, David Villa, Morales, you have some really big superstars that are coming in, and I think that games like that, we talk about it, they're easy to get up for and play, you know. So look, and then especially with so much on the line, and that's the thing. I think moments like this bring the best out of players.
Yeah, actually, if wins or points against DC and Philadelphia would have helped coming into this. They didn't get them, so now they're going to have to go and worry about tomorrow night against San Jose, and then Saturday coming up against NYCFC. Remember, a 7:30 kick on Saturday. We'll take a closer look at NYCFC and what they bring to Toyota Park when we return. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
Now it's time for the call.
Hey, Dad, what's going on here?
They're trying to figure out if they're going for 2.
They're gonna go for 2.
I think they're going for 2.
And the call is
2.
Go for it.
2-for-1 windows at Falco.
Right now at Feldco, score big with 2 windows for the price of 1. Plus, no interest for 1 year.
2 windows for the price of 1 and Saturday. So hurry. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
Sometimes late at night I get a craving. And when I get like this, there's only one man who can satisfy my needs. Mr. Sub.
Mr. Submarine is open late every night. Whenever the urge strikes for a tasty sandwich with delicious ingredients on bakery fresh Toronto bread, dive into deliciousness with Mr. Submarine.
Here, in this league, we're not okay with strong. We go stronger. We don't settle for fast. We go faster. We don't want next. We want next level. Here, we go all out. Because we're all in. This is our league. And here, we don't go for good. We go for great.
Four Seasons, how can we help you?
It's the Furnace!
Artis! The old pile of scraps burning through my savings! Hurry!
Remain calm, we're on our way.
24-hour repair and same-day installation. 4 Seasons can replace your furnace for as little as $17.95. Furnace and AC combos from $36.95. And take advantage of 0% interest financing for 5 years.
For all the right reasons, call 866-4 Seasons.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by CIBC. Time for the Valspar Primer. Valspar, the official paint of your Chicago Fire. NYCFC coming in. We've been talking a lot about the Chicago Fire going out to San Jose. Well, NYCFC is going to be busy too. They get a Montreal team on Wednesday. That will not be easy coming to play in there in Montreal before they come here. So that's back-to-back road games for them.
Not easy, exactly, especially when you're traveling and you're facing a team that basically must win in Montreal. The only difference is, after the game you're dealing with maybe an hour and 20-minute flight instead of cross-country, and then you're losing a whole day. So I think that's a factor, but listen, we're not going to talk about that. The travel is part of it. I think teams have to deal with it. But, the one thing when you talk about this team, I mean, you look at obviously a guy like Villa, I think no matter, he's a threat, the way he scores goals, his movement, his ability, he's not a guy that can finish off service, but he can get the ball, beat 2 guys. So he's just so dangerous. And he's a guy that over 90 minutes, his movement, you always have to be aware of him. Paul talked about Morales, the guy underneath. He's got 5 goals, 7 assists. He's a guy that kind of, dictates kind of the tempo, very dangerous with those late runs that it comes in good areas of the field. And obviously they're wide players. Harrison on one side, very dynamic, very, they have a lot of pace in transition if he's there. 9 goals, 6 assists. Wallace you talked about. So it's a solid team, and then depends the outside backs. Sweat, the left back has got 6 assists, so they get forward. Dangerous in set pieces. I remember the goal that the Fire gave, the second goal off Brillan. That second goal back in the second half. I think they kind of they can strike and hit you in many different ways.
Yeah, this is a team also. I think they have a lot of different weapons, and Patrick Vieira has been rotating the squad recently, partly because of injuries that he's been forced. Villa's been out as well. Without Yangel Herrera, they brought different guys. We've seen Pirlo come back into the lineup. We've seen Kyrie Shelton's played some minutes here recently. Tommy McNamara has been back in the lineup. So, he's been putting different guys in there, and I think I wouldn't be shocked to see something more looking like their normal 11 coming into Chicago as they start to try to get back into form ahead of the playoffs. That international break is there again. I think it's a natural stopping point for coaches to kind of hit the reset button, get their lineups back for the final couple games of the season. But they can beat you so many different ways. Villa's movement is unbelievable. His work rate is outstanding, and I really like what they're capable of doing with their wingers. Rodney Wallace is a smart MLS player, very vertical in the way he runs, his movement, his service. Jack Harrison able to go a little bit more one-on-one against you. And then they added that piece that they were missing from last season in Maxi Morales. He's a threat sitting at the top of the box, and anytime he's on the ball, he can find that pass. So a team very difficult to defend. Not having Yangel Herrera in the middle of the park underneath, that hurts them for sure. Alexander Ring's a very good player, but if it's a guy like Pirlo there, I think there's some areas to beat them in the middle of the park there. But I think when you go into New York, you've got to talk about what they're able to do going forward.
No, 100%. And you don't look any further than Villa. 19 goals, 6 assists.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention him. And I'm preaching to the choir here, and anybody that follows Major League Soccer, a couple of years ago, David Beckham was the thing that gave, it helped bring more people maybe to Major League Soccer. But when David Villa came to this league, people that know the league, what he's done not only for New York City FC, but I think for the league has been huge.
Look, he's a guy who has won a World Cup, okay? He's won Champions League. He scored goals with Barcelona. He scored goals with Spain. But most importantly, he came to this league, and he has just been, to me, the epitome and the class of what a DP should be. His work rate is phenomenal. How much he cares about every single game, that translates to the rest of the team. When you see David Villa working that hard, everyone else has to work that hard too. And I think also as an ambassador for the league, he's been outstanding.
Yeah.
He's been one of the few guys that goes over to Europe and says, anyone that says that soccer is poor in MLS doesn't watch MLS. And I think he's spot on there. The soccer is improving. It may not be where the rest of the world is, but that's not his point. And so in that sense, I think he's been a great ambassador for the league as well. And you know, I enjoy watching him play.
For me, besides the quality, because for me, I love that kind of forward. You know, his movement, a guy that's involved. That's a modern forward for me. He's got pace. The guy can get the ball. He can beat players. He can create stuff on his own. But Paul talked about his work rate, and I remember the last game with Herrera, getting that second yellow card in the 12th minute in the match, and then you saw him sprinting the times back to help the right back, getting forward. I mean, scoring the one goal in the second half, and then off the set piece for Brillant. So he's such a competitive guy that hates to lose, and that shows in every game. So for me, when you look at this team, you got some difference makers. You know, you have him, first of all, on top. You have a guy, Morales. They got more athletic. They got like Wallace. You see Jack Harrison now, the way he's playing. Ring in the middle, that they needed to be more athletic to deal and be more competitive in this league, and they are. So the key is, if, like Paul said, if Herrera is not there, Pirlo plays. Yes, he's a world-class player. He was. But I think there is a little bit, you know, he hurt you without the ball defensively. And their back line, for me, is still a little bit suspect.
Well, and lastly, it was Hamid, then it was Blake, now Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson's the kind of guy that can make saves, huge saves. We know that here in Chicago, too, but he can do it for NYCFC.
Let's not forget about Sean, because he's a guy that, again, is one of these goalkeepers. He's so athletic. When he's on, he's on. Very hard and obviously he's matured, and he's also been playing extremely well.
Just a couple weeks for the MLS before the playoffs get underway. We come back, we'll take a look at the Eastern Conference as the Chicago Fire get ready to take on San Jose on Wednesday evening in San Jose. Then it'll be a big matchup Saturday, NYCFC at Toyota Park at 7:30 start. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com/tickets. Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC.
We don't give up. We don't quit. We keep going. Day in, day out. We fight on. Why? Because we are champions. Be a champion.
Why would you go out of your way and wander around a warehouse for paint when you can just swing by your local Ace? Ace has top-rated paint like Valspar, can match any color, and mixes it with something that's hard to find. Award-winning service, because the way we see it, if anyone is going to go out of their way,
it should be us.
It's the Ace Extra Mile promise. If it ever takes more than one trip to complete your paint project, we'll bring you what you need, and delivery is free.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
NovaCare is the right choice for all athletes. As the exclusive provider of physical therapy to the Chicago Fire, we know the importance of keeping you active. Our sports medicine program, along with our movement assessments, aids us in finding your weak link and designing a program for you. We offer a full array of home care products so you can continue your care when you're not here. To request an appointment at any of our convenient Chicago locations, visit NovaCare.com today. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by CIBC. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio and Frank Klopis. And we're getting down to crunch time, guys. Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference standings. We got a lot of games coming up this week before the international break as we look at the Eastern Conference standings. And no surprise who we find on top. Toronto FC with those 62 points, very close to clinching the Supporters Shield. And then NYCFC, who will be here on Saturday, with 52. Atlanta, with their win this past weekend, jumped over the Fire into third, and then the Fire, Columbus, and the Red Bulls. Montreal right there, still with an opportunity. I don't know so much about New England, but Montreal, especially if they can knock off NYCFC. Some interesting matchups, too, coming up this week on Wednesday. A busy week, as we mentioned, with the San Jose games. But Wednesday, you have Atlanta entertaining Philadelphia, the Red Bulls, and DC United. Montreal and NYCFC, that's a big one to keep an eye on. And as we talked about, the Fire go to San Jose to take on the Earthquakes.
But I think when you look at the table, I think, Paul, that was your prediction before the season, all the top 6 teams. Did you have them all correct or no?
I believe I did, actually. I think I caught a lot of crap from the fans in Montreal and in Orlando. And then when Orlando was in first place early in the season, all my friends in Orlando were sending me mean text messages telling me how wrong I was. Maybe not so wrong after all, Frank. Look, MLS is very difficult to predict, but I think this league is starting to change a little bit in that there's a separation between some of the teams that spend and don't, and also some of the teams that are missing key parts and think that they can wait until certain points of the season to change that, Montreal being the best example of that. It's getting harder and harder in this league to be reactive. You can't wait until the summer window and make changes and hope it's just going to get you the playoffs, because especially in the East, teams have come in now that are willing to spend money. When you look at New York and Atlanta, what they've come in and done, and then Chicago this year has spent a lot of money to improve its roster, it's very, very difficult to wait until the last minute. But, I think what's been very interesting about this season is that these playoff races, they're always very tight, but this is wide open, not just in who's making the playoffs in the West, but where teams are going to be seated in the East. New York, Atlanta, and Chicago all fighting to be somewhere in that 2, 3, 4. Columbus only has 3 games left, so they've got to be very good. 2 of those final 3 are at home.
They're playing well, though. They're playing really well right now.
Their way in. I think the playoffs end up staying the way they are when it comes to the East. Those are going to be the top 6. It's a matter of who finishes where.
Let's take a look at the Saturday games real quick, too. The Saturday games with the Fire taking on NYCFC this coming Saturday. And there's some other big matchups. Speaking of Atlanta, you see Atlanta, they go to New England on Saturday at 6:30. TFC going up against the Red Bulls. Columbus, as you mentioned, Frank, they're playing real well, and they get DC United at home, and then Colorado and Montreal as Montreal travels out there.
It's a crucial game for Columbus at home. They finished with 2 straight on the road in difficult places to play, Orlando and then NYCFC. And then that Toronto Red Bulls game is absolutely huge. Toronto's dropped 2 in a row. They're going to want to start to get some confidence back, but the Red Bulls they understand that they have a chance at a home game. They're trying to scratch their way into that 4th seed. So for me, that's a huge game. And then Atlanta, we're going to see play the next 2 games, maybe 3, 4 games without Almiron.
Right, but I think for Atlanta, for me, they look at it, I think it's a must-win this Wednesday against Philly at home, and then they're on the road. I think the next game is crucial because then they'll still have a game in hand. But I think also the game to watch, I think this Red Bulls, I think the midweek game Wednesday, DC is going in. They had a big win now against San Jose. There's a lot of confidence for them, talking about building for next year, some of the moves that they've made. And that's a dangerous game. I think that, for me, is a crucial game to watch because you never know with the Red Bulls. I think that's not going to change the top 6. I agree with you. But then depending on what happens in that match, and then Montreal, if they win their game, against NYCFC, I think there can be some tight games, some big matches towards the end of the season here.
And no one would like to play spoiler more for the Red Bulls than DC United. It's a rivalry that goes a long way back. I know everyone pays attention to NYCFC Red Bulls. It's new and it's exciting crosstown. But that Atlantic Cup rivalry is a big one as well. And these games, the importance of these games keeps going up in the East. I really think Atlanta's a team to watch to get into that 2 seed. They have been playing very, very, very well, and even with Almiron out, I think they have the potential to jump NYCFC even. They have more games, and they've been informed. So for me, New York needs to know that it's not safe in that 2 seed.
No, for sure. But I also think for the Fire, I think it's a big opportunity, because you missed a little bit of a chance to gain some momentum and then make maybe the Saturday game even bigger than what it is. But I think, not only to gain momentum, but I think just to start playing better towards the end of the season right now. So I think there's opportunities there also for them now to start climbing up the ladder and make this game Saturday a lot bigger than, bigger than it is. It's a big game already, but I think an opportunity to get close or even bypass them.
And you got to start thinking about the playoffs. if the season ended today, it's Chicago against Columbus in the first round. But you know, being in the 3 seed or the 4 seed, that's maybe the difference in playing Columbus at home or playing the Red Bulls at home. So you know, which matchup do you like more? You understanding those implications is important when we talk about the playoff race. You know, you got to start talking about that first round game.
And real quickly, Al Marone, you got a guy like this. If a guy like that from any other team was gone, it would hurt a lot more. They've got so much firepower, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks, now with Martinez back especially.
He's such an important player, though, Almiron. He pulls defenders into space with him, and that allows guys to run into those spaces. But, you know, they're very, very deep. I think they'll move Julian Gressel into that spot. They'll keep Villalba, Assad, and Martinez, and they'll be very difficult to defend.
Especially on that field, on that pitch that's so big, and he's so dynamic. The front four, their movement, dynamic, and he's got so much pace. So he's a guy they got to get back.
We come back, we will take a look at the Western Conference. Very tight in the Western Conference. They've got busy schedules too on Wednesday and Saturday. We'll take a look at that. We come back. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
From ballparks to amusement parks and hot dogs to haute cuisine, visit enjoyillinois.com for trip ideas. Brought to you by the Illinois Office of Tourism, proud partner of the world champion Chicago Cubs. Illinois, are you up for amazing?
Whatever you're getting ready for, come into SUPERCUTS for our attention to detail and signature hot towel finish. So you're not just ready, but super ready. Check in online today.
Is a story. Behind every story is the reason for transparency.
Hi, Russ for U.S. Waterproofing. Looking for a company to repair your home can be stressful. Look to us, as many of your neighbors have, like Mrs. O'Brien in Elmhurst. We sealed cracks in her crawl space. Or Mr. Weber in Orland Park. We installed a battery backup sump pump. And Mr. Kaplan in Northbrook. He needed structural repair after he noticed cracks in his brickwork. We've helped many of your neighbors.
Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. US Waterproofing. A better basement starts with us.
On October 2nd, CSN will become NBC Sports Chicago, powered by Xfinity. The same games you love with expanded local coverage surrounding all the action. With on-air talent and reporters that know and cover your teams better than anyone else. At the exact same channel location where you found them all along. It will all be paired with a stronger connection to the power of NBC Sports. The ultimate destination for fans is NBC Sports Chicago, powered by Xfinity.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC. We took a look at the Eastern Conference, of course. We would do them first. That's where the Chicago Fire find themselves in fourth right now with big matchups coming up against San Jose and then the new NYCFC on Saturday. We look at the Western Conference, and it's a conference where you've got some really hot teams. You've got Seattle, Sporting Kansas City, the U.S. Open Cup winner, Portland, Vancouver, some unbelievable teams. And I don't know that anybody when the season started would have picked Vancouver. I don't know, maybe you did pick Vancouver at the top of the standings in the West.
I had Vancouver in the playoffs, and I caught a lot of flack for that. I think the team I really didn't see involved in this picture, there's actually two of them. I had Salt Lake and Houston a lot lower. I had Dallas and LA Galaxy higher. I had the Galaxy sneaking in at the 6th seed. They've been an absolute disaster this season.
I agree with that.
Just a total disaster. Yeah. Look, I thought Portland was going to win the West, and I had Kansas City as a 2 seed. I don't think I'm that far off there. I think that might be how it finishes. I had Portland, Kansas City, Seattle 1, 2, 3, and then I had Dallas at 4, and that they've had a really rough go of it as well. But for me, Portland and Kansas City to me are still the 2 teams to watch in the West.
I agree with you. Vancouver, a little bit of a surprise to me where they are. I mean, Portland, KC are teams, and even Seattle for me. I think the additions are made. I think when they get it together. I think that's a dangerous team. I have to really say the RSL, and you look, what Pecky's been able to do with that move. He's done he's been able to change something with that team, the mentality, but he's given them confidence, And he's really had a huge impact. And the way they moved up, I think it's great to see, Paul. I don't know, with this Dallas team, really, I mean, if you were to tell me, that they would be where they are right now in A place, and look, they can still sneak in, but it's been really disappointing to see.
10-game winless.
It's amazing. And there have been some games that played well. It's just so hard to get that result.
I mean, I roasted them a few weeks back for turning down the sale of Rudy and Barrios for $5 million, and I'm going to double down on that. That was just so short-sighted by the ownership of FC Dallas to turn down that kind of money for two players who are replaceable in a team, and especially a team that's not going to win MLS Cup. And I said then I didn't think they make the playoffs even, and it looks like they're not going to, but you need to have the vision long-term if you're an FC Dallas club, because you're not a high-spending club. You're developing players in the youth, and the structure of a team like that has to be to sell when you can sell and to sell at the highest profit possible. There's no way they see money like that for those two players again, and they're not going to make the playoffs now, and it's a huge missed opportunity, and it makes it an even bigger loss this season for Dallas. And then you look at LA Galaxy, they've gotten worse since making a coaching change. I think they need to blow everything up in the offseason, new GM, new coach, new everything, because it's clearly not working and LAFC's coming in. For me, it's crazy because two of the biggest stories in the Western Conference are the two teams that are not going to be anywhere near the playoffs. And a team like Vancouver being number one, I think everyone's just kind of waiting for them to drop back to where they normally should be in the West.
Well, you look and you kind of wonder what kind of impact that's had in the locker room with Dallas and those players, knowing that there's an opportunity maybe to make a move and be in a better situation for the player, but you never know how that's impacted them. I mean,
Rudy
right
wanted
now,
to go home for the birth of his child, he said. I mean,
right now you can just see that it's impacted in a negative way. I agree with you. LA is a total disaster. Total disaster. I agree with you 100%. I look at Minnesota, a team that doesn't spend so much, and I think Adrian Heath has had an opportunity now to bring some pieces there together, and you see, he's finding way to improve that team with guys and moves that they made through MLS, and I think that's a positive because they're kind of swinging upwards towards the end of the season. That's a positive, and it'll be interesting, for that final spot. There's a lot of huge games coming up.
And I don't think RSL is going to, they've got to win out because they have the fewest games left.
Exactly.
And Pecky's done a phenomenal job, but I think they're going to be the team that misses out unless they can win out and get a little bit of help.
But a lot of momentum to build from there because you finish in a positive way. He's done something really special there, and I think you can build making some right moves in the offseason.
Not only that, Frank, but we've talked about this. They have a lot of wiggle room in the salary cap.
That's
Beckerman's contract comes up. Ramondo's contract comes up. They have some open DP spots that are going to happen. They have some targeted allocation money.
Well, the West is interesting. We'll see what Portland does, Vancouver, SKC. Well, we're going to keep a close eye on the Chicago Fire. They are in action tomorrow night. Game you can catch on CSN Plus. It is a 9:30 kick, 9 o'clock pregame, and then the big one on Saturday as NYCFC comes to town. 7:30 kick. Tickets available at chicago-fire.com. I'm Fred Hubner for Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez. Let's see if the Fire can come up with some three-point games. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC, the official bank of your Chicago Fire.